The ultimatum commander Marcus Rivera floated in the observation deck of Jupiter Station, watching the massive gas giant rotate slowly beneath him. For 12 years, this had been humanity's furthest permanent outpost, a symbol of how far they'd come since discovering faster-than-light travel. The coffee in his magnetic mug had gone cold hours ago, but he couldn't bring himself to leave. Something felt wrong about the day. The feeling proved correct when space itself seemed to tear open. Hundreds of ships emerged from hyperspace, their hulls gleaming with technology that made human vessels look primitive. The stellar hegemony had arrived in force. Marcus had seen diplomatic vessels before, sleek ships carrying ambassadors from the 12 elder species. This was different. This was an armada. His communication badge crackled to life. Commander Rivera to the bridge, Priority 1. He pushed off from the viewing window, his military training taking over. Within minutes, he was strapped into his command chair, watching as his crew worked frantically at their stations. Lieutenant Chen looked up from her console, face pale. "Sir, they're broadcasting on all channels. It's addressed to Earth leadership." The main screen flickered to life, revealing a being Marcus recognized from intelligence briefings. Overlord Caxon of the Hegemony Council stood nearly 3 meters tall, his crystalline body refracting light in mesmerizing patterns. When he spoke, his translated voice carried absolute authority. "Humans of Earth, your expansion period has ended. The stellar hegemony has observed your species for 50 cycles. Your aggressive nature, combined with rapid technological advancement, poses an unacceptable risk to galactic stability." Marcus felt his jaw clench. They'd heard these accusations before in smaller diplomatic meetings. Humanity was too warlike, they said. Too unpredictable. Too dangerous to be allowed freedom among the stars. But this was the first time the hegemony had brought a fleet to make their point. Caxon continued, his form pulsing with colors that Marcus couldn't interpret. "You are hereby given 72 hours to comply with the following demands. First, all human military vessels will be decommissioned and surrendered to hegemony control. Second, your research into quantum weaponry will cease immediately, with all data transferred to our archives. Third, human colonies beyond your home system will accept hegemony governors to ensure peaceful integration. Fourth, Earth itself will reduce its defensive capabilities by 90%. The bridge fell silent except for the hum of equipment. Marcus could feel the rage building in his chest, carefully controlled through years of training. This wasn't a negotiation. It was conquest dressed up in bureaucratic language. The transmission continued for another 10 minutes, outlining the consequences of non-compliance in clinical detail. Orbital bombardment, economic isolation, the systematic dismantling of everything humanity had built among the stars. When the screen finally went dark, Marcus turned to his crew. "Get me a secure line to Earth Command, and start Protocol 7 quietly. No official channels." Protocol 7 was something that officially didn't exist. A contingency plan for if humanity ever faced extinction from beyond Earth. Hidden caches of weapons, secret research facilities, and most importantly, ships that weren't on any official registry. The next 48 hours were chaos on Earth. The United Nations held emergency sessions that devolved into shouting matches. Some nations wanted to comply, arguing that resistance against 12 advanced species was suicide. Others demanded humanity fight regardless of the odds. The media ran constant coverage, with experts debating whether the hegemony would actually follow through on their threats. President Chen of the United Earth Coalition appeared on every screen, trying to maintain calm while negotiations continued. But behind the scenes, the military was moving. Ships listed as decommissioned suddenly had full crews. Training exercises became deployment preparations. Research facilities that supposedly studied agriculture started producing weapons. Marcus remained at Jupiter Station, coordinating with other outer system commanders through encrypted channels. Admiral Natasha Volkov commanded the hidden fleet near Neptune. General James Thompson had the asteroid belt defenses. Captain Yuki Nakamura controlled the Mars orbital platforms. They all knew what the politicians couldn't say publicly. The hegemony had already decided humanity's fate. The ultimatum was just theater. The attack came 24 hours early. Marcus was reviewing defense positions when alarms screamed across the station. Multiple hyperspace signatures detected. They're targeting the civilian platforms. Lieutenant Chen's fingers flew across her console. The hegemony had lied about the timeline, striking when Earth's defenses were still debating. But they'd made a critical error. They'd targeted civilians first, thinking it would break human morale. They didn't understand human psychology at all. Marcus watched in horror as the Europa colony took direct hits. 15,000 colonists, mostly families of scientists and engineers, vaporized in seconds. The mining stations around Ganymede went next, their ore processors exploding in brilliant flashes. These weren't military targets. This was slaughter designed to terrorize. All stations, this is Commander Rivera. Authorization code Prometheus. Repeat, Prometheus is active. Weapons free, protect all civilian vessels. Across human space, something remarkable happened. The fractured debate ended instantly. Every human ship, from massive battle cruisers to tiny mining vessels, received the same message and responded the same way. The hegemony had crossed a line that united humanity in a way no speech ever could. They'd killed innocents and called it peacekeeping. Hidden weapon platforms around Jupiter powered up, their existence unknown even to Earth's civilian government. Ships thought to be cargo haulers dropped their disguises, revealing military-grade shields and weapons. The hegemony fleet, confident in their technological superiority, suddenly found themselves facing 3 times the resistance they'd calculated. But the real surprise came from humanity's approach to warfare. The hegemony fought with elegant formations, their ships moving in perfect synchronization like a ballet of destruction. Humans fought like chaos incarnate. No 2 ships used the same tactics. Some charged head-on in suicidal ramming attacks. Others hid among asteroids, striking from ambush. Civilian ships broadcast false distress signals, luring hegemony vessels into kill zones. Commander Rivera coordinated from Jupiter Station, watching patterns emerge from the chaos. The hegemony's shields were strongest against energy weapons but vulnerable to kinetic impacts. Their sensors couldn't track objects smaller than a shuttle moving at certain speeds. Their formations, so perfect and practiced, couldn't adapt quickly to unpredictable attacks. Within 6 hours, the hegemony's easy victory had turned into a bloody stalemate. They destroyed many human ships, but at a cost they hadn't anticipated. For every human vessel lost, the crews fought to the last breath, often taking enemy ships with them. The hegemony had expected surrender after the first casualties. Instead, each death made humanity fight harder. Admiral Volkov's voice crackled through encrypted communications. "All commanders, Phase 2 is ready. On my mark, we show them what desperation and genius create together." Marcus smiled grimly. The hegemony thought they were fighting primitive humans with stolen FTL technology. They were about to learn that humans had been preparing for this day since they first looked at the stars, and realized they weren't alone. Project Prometheus wasn't just hidden ships and weapons. It was decades of secret research, studying captured hegemony technology, finding weaknesses, developing countermeasures. Every peaceful trade, every diplomatic exchange, humans had been learning, analyzing, preparing, not because they wanted war, but because they'd learned from their own history that peace without strength was just delayed conquest. The battle for Jupiter Station would be remembered as the moment humanity stopped pretending to be harmless. As hegemony ships burned in space and their perfect formations crumbled, a message spread through their fleet. The humans weren't just fighting back. They were winning, and they were angry. The Reckoning. The news of Jupiter Station's successful defense spread through human space like wildfire. What the hegemony had planned as a quick suppression had become a genuine war, and humanity's response shocked everyone, including many humans themselves. The careful facade of a species trying to peacefully join galactic civilization had shattered, revealing something far more dangerous underneath. Admiral Natasha Volkov stood in the command center of the ghost ship Rasputin, one of 17 vessels that officially never existed. Around her, officers coordinated with resistance cells across human space. The hegemony controlled the main trade routes and held superior positions around Earth. But they'd fundamentally misunderstood human nature. They'd expected organized military resistance they could systematically destroy. Instead, they got something far worse: coordinated chaos. Mining ships loaded with asteroids performed suicide runs on hegemony supply lines. Civilian freighters broadcast false intelligence, leading enemy fleets into ambushes. Children on occupied colonies sabotaged equipment with techniques learned from history classes about the French resistance. Every human had become a potential combatant, and the hegemony's rigid military doctrine couldn't adapt. On the bridge of his flagship, Overlord Caxon struggled to understand the reports flooding in. His species, the crystalline Dominion, had conquered worlds for 1,000 years using the same tactics. Overwhelming force, surgical strikes on leadership, and the quick establishment of control. It had always worked before, but humans didn't stop fighting when their leaders fell. They didn't surrender when outgunned. They seemed to get more creative the more desperate their situation became. Overlord, his tactical advisor approached cautiously. The Zanari delegation requests an audience. They have concerns about our methods. Caxon's form flickered with irritation. The Zanari were one of the 12 member species of the hegemony, known for their philosophical approach to conflict. They'd supported the decision to contain humanity, but were growing uncomfortable with how the war was progressing. The meeting took place in the neutral zone near Mars, where the bulk of both fleets had gathered for what many expected to be the decisive battle. Ambassador Sarek of the Zanari appeared on the communication screen, her tentacled form rippling with distress patterns. Overlord Caxon, my people are troubled. You promised a peaceful integration. Instead, we're witnessing genocide. Human civilian casualties exceed 300,000. Caxon's response was cold and calculated. The humans brought this upon themselves by resisting. Every species must learn their place in the galactic order. But Sarek wasn't finished. And what of our own casualties? 40,000 hegemony soldiers dead in 3 weeks, against a species that only achieved FTL travel 50 years ago. Perhaps we've underestimated them. Perhaps negotiation would be wiser. The suggestion was met with absolute rejection. Caxon couldn't afford to show weakness, not when other member species were watching. The hegemony's power came from its image of invincibility. If humans could resist successfully, other younger species might get similar ideas. The war had to end with humanity's complete submission or extinction. But as the fleets prepared for battle around Mars, something unexpected happened. General James Thompson, commanding Mars Defense, broadcast a message on all frequencies, not to the hegemony military but to their civilian populations back home. The message included footage from the Europa massacre, children's toys floating in space among the debris, and recorded messages from human colonists in their final moments. We didn't want this war. Thompson's voice was steady and clear. We wanted to explore the stars, to learn, to grow. Your leaders came to our homes and killed our families because they feared what we might become. Ask yourselves, who are the real aggressors here? Who fired the first shots at civilians? We're not fighting for conquest. We're fighting for survival, and we'll remember who stood with the murderers and who stood for justice. The psychological warfare was devastating. Across hegemony space, civilian populations who'd been told humans were dangerous barbarians saw evidence of their own forces committing atrocities. Protests began on some worlds. The Zanari formally withdrew their fleet from the engagement, declaring neutrality. 2 other species followed suit. The mighty hegemony alliance was fracturing. The Battle of Mars began at 0600 Earth Standard Time. The hegemony brought 400 ships, expecting to crush human resistance with overwhelming firepower. Humanity brought 150 ships, but also something else. Desperation fueled innovation. As the fleets engaged, human vessels deployed weapons the hegemony had never seen. Nanite swarms that ate through shields, gravitational mines that created micro-singularities, computer viruses that turned hegemony ships against each other. Commander Marcus Rivera, now commanding a battle group after Jupiter Station's success, led his ships in a maneuver that would be studied in military academies for centuries. Using Mars's gravity well and debris from destroyed ships, his forces created a dynamic minefield that channeled hegemony formations into kill zones. It wasn't elegant. It wasn't honorable by hegemony standards, but it was devastatingly effective. The turning point came when Captain Yuki Nakamura executed Operation Wildfire. 20 human ships, all volunteers who knew they wouldn't survive, performed synchronized FTL jumps directly into the hegemony formation. The overlapping gravity waves from multiple simultaneous jumps created a space-time distortion that disabled shields across the entire enemy fleet. In those crucial seconds of vulnerability, every human weapon fired at once. The hegemony flagship shattered under concentrated fire. Overlord Caxon's final transmission was one of disbelief. This is impossible. You're primitives. You're nothing. But as his crystalline form fractured and dispersed into space, the truth was undeniable. Humanity had won, not through superior technology or numbers, but through will, creativity, and the absolute refusal to accept defeat. Admiral Volkov's voice echoed across all channels. Attention all hegemony forces. Your leader is dead. Your fleet is broken. We offer you one chance to surrender. Take it, or face the same fate as those who murdered our children. The surrender came within minutes. Hegemony ships powered down weapons and waited for boarding parties. The 12 elder species had ruled the galaxy for millennia, and in 3 weeks humans had broken their power. But victory brought complications. Humanity suddenly found itself in possession of hundreds of advanced ships and thousands of prisoners. More importantly, the power vacuum left by the hegemony's defeat threatened to plunge the galaxy into chaos. Younger species, emboldened by humanity's success, began asserting themselves. Some sought alliance with Earth, others saw opportunity for conquest. President Chen addressed the galaxy from the United Nations. Humanity didn't seek this war, but we won't apologize for defending ourselves. We propose a new Galactic Council, one based on equality rather than domination. Every species, regardless of age or power, deserves a voice. Those who stood with tyranny will face justice. Those who choose peace will find humans to be steadfast allies. The Zanari were the first to accept, their ambassador personally apologizing for not acting sooner. Other species followed, some reluctantly, others eagerly. The old order was dead and something new was being born. It wouldn't be perfect. There would be conflicts, disagreements, and challenges, but it would be built on a foundation of respect rather than fear. In the aftermath, historians would debate what led to humanity's victory. Was it the secret preparations of Project Prometheus, the unity forged by the hegemony's atrocities, the innovative tactics that confused rigid military doctrine? The answer was all of these and more. Humanity won because they refused to accept someone else's definition of their place in the universe. Commander Marcus Rivera stood once again in Jupiter Station's observation deck, now rebuilt after the battle. The space around Jupiter was busy with ships of a dozen species, working together to clear debris and construct new facilities. A young ensign approached with a report, then paused. "Sir, may I ask you something? How did we really win?" "They had every advantage." Marcus smiled, remembering the fear he'd felt when the hegemony fleet first arrived. They had better technology, more ships, and thousands of years of experience. But they made one fatal mistake. They thought they were fighting humans as we are now. Instead, they fought every human who ever lived. Every soldier who died for freedom. Every rebel who refused to kneel. Every parent who protected their children. We carry all of them in our DNA, in our culture, in our dreams. The hegemony thought they were fighting one species. They were fighting our entire history, and history showed them why humans never learned to stay down. The galaxy would remember the war of hegemony aggression, not just as humanity's emergence as a major power, but as the moment when the established order learned a fundamental truth. Those who underestimate the human spirit, who mistake kindness for weakness or patience for passivity, do so at their own peril. Humanity had tried peace and been answered with war. Their response had changed the galaxy forever.